Hello everyone, I'm MORDECAI. Let's look at some important checklists to look out for or some factors to consider before you sign any employment contract, before you put pen to paper for your job. Most of the times we search for a job, we attend a job interview. Then when successful with our job interview, we are offered a contract to sign before we start work. Because of excitement, because we are very happy for our new job role, we often don't read our job contract very well. Later, when you are asking for some benefits from your employer, when you are asking for salary increment, when you want to get promotion, when you want to go on extra holidays, when you want to terminate your job contract, your employer will refer to the contract you signed before you started work. This is why it is very, very important to consider some factors or to look out for some checklists before you sign any contract. And that is the purpose of today's video. We are quickly going to look at some important factors to consider before you sign any employment contract. My name is MORDECAI. It's Nature and Lifestyle. Thank you very much for coming to watch today's video. Thank you guys. If you are new here, kindly subscribe before you leave. If you don't understand anything, just leave your question in this video comment section and I'll quickly reply to your question, okay, and answer it for you. We'll go through the employment contract checklist or some factors to consider before you sign any employment contract. But first, let's go through the 5 never ever rules for any contract. What I term as the 5 never ever rules for any job contract, no matter which part of the world you find yourself. The first one is never sign a job contract if all the blank spaces in the contract are not filled or are not completed. So, example, if the employer has not written your start date and your end date for that contract, do not sign it. If there is any blank spaces in that contract, do not sign it. The next one is never sign a job contract if that contract is written in a language that you don't understand. So if you are an English and let's say the contract is written in a Japanese language and you don't understand, do not sign that job contract. Make sure you understand your job contract before you sign it. The next one, do not sign a job contract if there is no termination agreement in that contract, okay? Because today you're excited for your job role. Probably a year or two later, you may want to quit your job. You therefore have to look at the termination agreement in that contract before you sign. If there is no termination agreement, do not sign the contract. The next one is always ask for documents that has been written in that contract. So if your employer cited a different document in your job contract, ask for copies of that document before you sign that contract. And lastly, never place any reliance on verbal promises. Guys, verbal promises are not good when signing a job contract. Tell your employer to put all the things he or she have said verbally in that contract so that you can hold them responsible with your contract when you want to raise some issues later. Never place any reliance on verbal promises when signing any employment contract. The first item on the checklist or the first factor to consider is pre-employment agreement. Pre-employment agreement usually covers the period from when you accept a job role to the period when you start work. It is not all employers who will offer you a pre-employment agreement. But if your employer offers you this agreement, then look out for these things in that pre-employment agreement. The first one is, are you required to pay any money when you don't start work? The second one is, are they going to require you to do any exams or any extra documentation before you start work? So don't just sign pre-employment agreement. Read through it and make sure you are satisfied with the pre-employment agreement before you sign it. The second thing that you have to look out for before you sign any job contract is salary. Guys, salary is very, very important. Make sure that your salary per hour, per week, per month, whichever period that you agreed with them, is stated in your job contract, okay? It is clearly stated in your job contract that every hour you are going to receive this amount of money, or at the end of every month you're going to receive this amount of money. Also make sure they add overtime salary to your job salary, okay? So probably they are paying you $20 every hour, but when you do overtime they will increase it to $25 every hour. Make sure this agreement is included in your job contract before you sign it. Then also with regards to salary, make sure they include the period for salary increment. So how many years do you have to work before you negotiate for salary increment? If this is not in your contract, ask your employer about it and let them put it in your job contract. The next one is your job description. Guys, never sign any employment contract without you knowing your job description. The job description is the same as your key responsibilities at work or your duties at work. So you have to make sure your job description is stated in your contract. You read through it, and when you are satisfied, you can then sign the contract. If there is anything in your job description that you are not familiar with, you discuss it with your employer before you sign that contract. Then you also look out for induction and orientation program. This is very, very important for professionals who are working in overseas country, or if you are preparing to work in any overseas country, then in your contract look out for orientation and induction program. With regards to this, you are looking out for how long your induction or orientation program will take, if you will be paid during your induction. What are some of the areas your induction program will cover, okay? And if you didn't understand anything in your job contract, you ask if that part will be covered during your orientation or induction program. Guys, this is also important. Then you look out for what I call probation period, okay? Probation period. So the probation period is simply the first few months when you start work. Your employer would want to study you, would want to monitor you, how you do your job. Now, after your probation period, you just continue working. Now, in this probation period, you also want to find out if you will be paid, how much you'll be paid during your probation period, how long is the probation period going to take, and if there is going to be any contract termination, okay? If there will be a possible contract termination during your probation period, what are the agreements for that contract termination? So guys, be mindful of this. Then termination of contract or termination agreement. Make sure that you read about your termination agreement in your job contract before you sign it. If there is no termination agreement, guys, do not sign that contract. With regards to termination agreement, you are looking out for some penalty that you have to pay if you want to terminate your contract, or some benefits you have to get if your employer wants to terminate your contract. How many months or week notice do you have to give before you terminate your job contract? Then what are the grounds on which your employer can terminate your contract, or the grounds on which you can terminate your own contract? So make sure that termination agreement is clearly stated in your employment contract before you sign it. Another factor you have to look out for is the length of the contract. Make sure that if your contract is for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years, okay, it is clearly written in your job contract. Never accept any verbal length of contract agreement. Make sure that the number of years you're going to work with them is stated in your job contract, because if you want to terminate your contract, you're going to fall on that. With regards to the length of the contract, you also look out for contract renegotiation agreement. So let's say they have stated that your contract is for 2 years. You read about that after the 2 years. Do you have to renegotiate the contract again? Do you have the opportunity to extend your contract, or after the 2 years you cannot work with them? So you look out for the length of contract agreement in your employment contract. The next thing you have to look out for is annual leave, sick leave, maternity leave, time off. annual leave, sick leave, maternity leave, time off, okay? Make sure the rules about all these are clearly stated in your job contract. If it is ambiguous, if it is vague, if it is not stated well, you ask questions about it and you make sure that they put your answers in that part of the contract. So with regards to annual leave, how many weeks of annual leave are you entitled to? Can you book your annual leave together, or you have to book it in small bits? Okay, maternity leave, how many months of maternity leave are you entitled to? Okay, at which stage of your pregnancy are you due to ask for maternity leave? And if you want to extend your maternity leave, what is the agreement? Then sick leave, if you are sick, okay, what is the company's policy with regards to you asking for sick leave? You have to make sure you understand all this before you sign any employment contract. Then hours of work and overtime. How many hours did you agree with them that you'll be doing in a week or in a month, okay? Did you agree for 6 hours job a day or 12 hours job a day? You have to make sure that the hours you agree with them is stated in your job contract. So if it is 37.5 hours a week, if it is 42.5 hours a week, or if it is just 24 hours a week, make sure it is clearly stated in your job contract before you sign it. Then your overtime too. Do you have the chance to do any overtime job? Okay, how many hours of overtime are you allowed to do? Make sure it is clearly stated in your job contract. Then one thing, some employers put it in the job contract that they have the freedom to call you anytime there is shortage at work. Make sure you read about that, and if you don't agree, discuss it with them. Let them remove it before you start your work. Else you do your normal contracted hours a week, then your manager will call you that there is shortage at work, so it is compulsory that you have to come and do a shift because you signed for that in your job contract. So be very, very mindful about this agreement. Then you also have to inquire about health insurance or medical insurance. Some employers offers medical insurance. It is not all employers, okay? Some employers will offer you a medical insurance. If it is there, you are going to look out for the length of the medical insurance, if it covers only you or you and your family. Now, is there any specific health facility that you have to go when you are sick in order to be covered by that medical insurance? Then what are some of the diseases that are not covered, or what are some of the sickness that are covered by the medical insurance? Read about this, make sure that you are satisfied before you sign that employment contract. Then another one is indemnity agreement, professional indemnity agreement. Professional indemnity is simply insurance that covers you in your course of work, okay? Insurance that covers you when you are working. So sometimes we make mistakes when we are working, and some people would want to press legal charges. Now, when those legal charges are pressed, sometimes we are made to pay some compensation to those victims. This is where your professional indemnity agreement comes in, or your insurance comes in. So this agreement covers you in case you have to pay any money for any mistake that you did at work. It is not all employers that offers this professional indemnity agreement, so just inquire about it, and if they do offer it, make sure they put it in your contract before you sign it. Then there are other things that are not compulsory, but I think just ask about it, okay? They are not compulsory, but just ask. The first one among those things are your accommodation. Do they offer any accommodation for your job? Okay, do they offer any accommodation? Then training, okay, professional training or career development training. Are they going to offer any other extra career development training for you when you start work? Also ask about this as well. Then in your contract, you also have to make sure that they have stated the nature of pension payments. Okay, pension payment is very, very important. With regards to pension payment, you are asking your employer if they are going to pay all your pensions, What are the percentage of the pension that they're going to pay for you? Which company are they paying the pension for? How many pension agreement do they have? Okay, so never sign any employment contract if you don't understand the pension payment. Read about it. If you have any question, you ask your employer about it. Guys, it is very, very important to read your contract very well before you put pen to paper. Else, you sign your contract and you sign your life away, okay? For the period of your contract, you become so miserable, you will not be comfortable at your workplace because there are some terms and conditions in the contract that are not favorable to you. If you have any question about your job contract, I'll leave the link to our Vibrant Telegram page in this video's description. So you join the Telegram page and I'll be able to chat with you privately. Then I can review your employment contract with you. Kindly subscribe to this channel. Kindly like this channel. And guys, most importantly, share this video and like this video as well. I will advise you that when you are signing any contract, you read the contract very well before you sign it. My name is MORDECAI. It's nature and lifestyle. Thank you very much for watching today's video. See you another time with another interesting video.